Hey, what's up? Welcome to this rainy day in Austin, Texas, and we have a question that has come in from one of our challenges. Super awesome, and it has to do with how do we start moving towards intent in conversation that is not just chit-chat. How do we project intent? What are some simple ways we can do it with a resource, which is very good for you guys, so you can just go there and look it all up. But in addition to that, what makes things go from social to sexual in a conversation? Then we'll put it into a conversation, swap it all nice and easy for you, and you can go out and try it. So let's get to it. Let's go. All right, super awesome question. I love stuff like this because when it comes down to social dynamics, we have got this dialed in, and I want you to be able to get this. If you are not experiencing intent as a man in the exchange of that, meaning that you want women and women want you, that exchange happening, then you're not gonna feel what masculinity feels like. And in fact, this can happen even when you're in a relationship. You know, about 10 years ago here in Austin, Texas, San Perrion used to live here for a brief time, but he gave a speech, and what he said is really profound, because he said that in a relationship, a woman is constantly being hit on by men. But in that relationship, because of how our society works, our culture works, and perhaps the nature of men and women work, that men never get hit on by women. And you feel dead inside in that sort of way. And, you know, women start to feel dead inside in that sort of way. And if you are not knowing that you're an attractive man, that you're a sexual man to the world around you, it's very hard to be an attractive sexual man in the world in front of you. Look, sexual intent is a huge thing that we all need to feel. And if we don't feel it, it really messes us up in all these different ways. So first thing that I want you to do is I want you to use a research tool of mine. It's the sexuallife.com/126. And if you just go there, thesexuallife.com/126, you're going to be able to find an article that is about speaking sex without using words. Now, first, let's just cover intent isn't just saying something. And if you think it is just saying something, you're going to get it wrong. It's actually a feeling, and it's an exchange. We're going to talk about that in just a moment because that's very important too. But what you're going to see in this article is different ways where you could stand closer. You could use your tonality. You could use your facial expressions. You can use just your pacing of the situation to be able to broadcast that you want them. Now, here's the thing, is sex is never spoken literally. And this is part of the problem with our culture, is we're always trying to talk about sex in terms of this like equation, or use logic, or use language to communicate it. And don't get me wrong, it does use language, it does use logic, it does use math even to that extent. But really, the first and foremost part of the speech is sub-communicated. And I don't want you to be confused by that, because you are literally sub-communicating with everybody every day. Even if you have autism or Asperger's, you are sub-communicating at a certain level. And you need to understand that the language of sex is using that, so you need to speak that language. Okay, so what you're gonna see in that article, and there's some attached audios and so on to it, or if you sign up for the Instant Connection email list that's attached to it and so on, you get those audios emailed to you. But it's pretty amazing, okay? So when we can do that, we can stand a little bit closer, rock in, rock out, drop our tonality, use our eye contact in the right way, our facial expressions, all those different things, that's actually going to broadcast intent much differently. If we get a script that might say Steve projects intent to a waitress that he's talking to, the words might read, "Hey, I really like you," which is stating intent, right? But it's so much more important about the sub-communicative parts, which can't really be written, and they kind of are held by that direction of like Steve projects intent. So if I'm going to say I really like you, it's not just going to be like, "Hey, I really like you." That's not going to get me the result I want, right? I need to be able to go like, "Hey, look, I really like you." And that's just one way of putting it out there, and it's dependent upon the situation and so on. But those types of things that I'm doing with my body language, facial expression, tonality, and so on, it's going to have a lot more to do with me projecting intent. Now, here's the other thing, okay? We're gonna switch gears here a little bit and talk about the phenomenon of what intent is and what your real goal is, because this is very important too. So if you wanna know the technical side of it, remember thesexuallife.com/126, but also just know it's not just literally the words and lines. So let's jump to the goal of intent. The goal of intent is to exchange intent. Okay, so one thing that we talk about all the time is that there's a process in seduction or social dynamics where we go from social to sexual. You're always going to be in social and using social tools, which are very good. That might be fun, rapport, back and forth, all the sort of push-pull type stuff. But in order to go sexual, we need to move into intent, which still might have some of that fun, that playfulness, and the push-pull. It's going to have a lot less of it, though, and what it's going to have is a lot more physically with our bodies. But in order to get from social to sexual, we don't need to just state intent. We need to exchange intent, something that you've been hearing me say this whole time. So we want to get that phenomenon of the exchange. And right now, you may not know what that is because you're not on the roadmap of it and so on. So you need to get some experience. You need to get on that path. And eventually, when you do get there, it's so within our body and our DNA that you'll speak it quite easily. But we got to get you there. Might take a lot of mistakes, okay? So the exchange of intent of what that means to go from social to sexual literally means that me liking them needs to have an effect of them liking me back. All right. So how that's done is in a situation, let's say I'm talking to a waitress and I could be like, man, I really like you. If she blushes, if she starts responding in a way where it's like, she probably won't be able to say literally that she likes me back. This is again where it can get very confusing because it's not going to be literal. It's not going to follow a map. It's not going to follow a science, although it does follow a map, but it's an emotional map. We have to start looking at her body language and her sub-communications coming back. Now, if I say, man, I really like you, and she's like, well, I don't talk about that at work. She could still actually like me, even though she's literally saying not. Or I could say, man, I really like you. And she's like, well, I don't like you. And she gets really dramatic about it. Even though she's directly saying she doesn't like me, it could still mean that. Now, it doesn't mean that she does. It really, what it means is, keep playing the game, man. Keep playing the game. Man, you got to win me over, man. You got to win me over. I'm a woman. I'm prized. Show me what that is. You know, really what is happening there is she's telling us to continue playing on. With all of that, that is very important, okay? So we need to get that sort of exchange. So the best thing that I could do for this, to show you it, to really have it be a literal mapped out example, is next time you're in a conversation, and you do have to get to this conversation. If you can't get to this conversation, then we shouldn't be having this conversation. So you've got to get there to where it can exchange, and I'll give you a literal way to say it, the actual verbiage to get you there. Now, of course, your body language, your tonality, all these different things should be in check. You can practice in front of the mirror, you can practice in front of a video camera, but practice in front of talking to people. You can say, man, I really like you, but that doesn't mean anything unless it really means something to you. So we could say something like, look, I really like you, but that doesn't mean anything unless that really means something to you too. That itself is actually demanding that they give a response back in a certain way. Now, that should put you at a fairly low level, but a level of intent, that exchange happening. So you're moving to that phenomenon. Now, I want to clear this up too, because intent happens in all social dynamics, not just in the social dynamic of seduction, but intent will happen in a sale as well. Intent will happen anytime you have a point where you want to reach. So if I'm trying to figure out how we work together and so on, how do we move more into that? Okay. So intent could be something like, man, I really want to work with you, but do you want to work with me? Like, because if that's the case, I need to see certain action from you. Now, another form of intent might be like, look, I'm really looking for the best person for this job and who I can, give all my taxes to and all this sort of stuff. But do you have the time for it? Is this something that you want? See, I'm giving that offer for them to show it back. This is important for you to understand in the structure of what intent is. So now let's go back to some different applications of where and how you can do this, which is pretty important. So number one, if you're not used to socializing and talking to people, pick easy people to talk to. This is waitresses, this is people working at counters, coffee shops, all sorts of things. This shouldn't be people that you know. This should be people that you don't know. Let's try and get into some easy conversations. Now we have tons and tons of videos on how you can get started with that. And before you say that, I don't want to talk to people that work in different stores and so on because they're all just paid to be nice to me, man, stop with that. Look, you don't know, okay? You don't know. Waitress, first off, is a waitress. She's not some social dynamics master. She's only paid to be nice to you, to greet you. Somebody at a cafe, the same thing. They're not paid to actually be nice to you and be your friend, and we're trying to get that. But you might start off with a conversation of like, hey, how are those cakes? And, you know, you keep bringing this up. You know, it's a funny story, but one of my clients met up with me for a dinner before one of our meetups. And he goes, man, you know what I haven't tried here? Is I haven't tried the cakes, and I hear they're really good, but I'm trying to not eat that stuff anymore. When do you ever cross the line with things? Which is one of the other videos that I did, and I was just like, oh, you got me. I was bought into it. I was about to try the cakes here, but apparently they didn't even have cakes there. Okay, you probably didn't get that. So we could start off with something at a cafe and just go, man, those cakes look good, or those pastries look good, but I'm trying to not eat that stuff right now. But what is a time where you just go for something and eat everything that you want, or live everything that you want, but you can't hold back from it? Now, the person may or may not answer that. They might be confused. They might answer you right away. They might ask why you're asking that. They might just immediately reject the conversation, which in that case you just say, hey, I'm sorry, I was just asking. It's all good. But in those different situations, we're generally going to move, if they're welcoming at all or confused or kind of playing along, we're going to then move to something pretty simple, which is basically this. We could tell a story of when we did that. We could say, man, one of the things in my life is I tend to go 100% at things which are very particular and get all carried away, but at the rest of my life, like sometimes that's family, sometimes that's my job, I kind of like slack, and it's not good. All I'm going to do then is I'm going to then ask pretty much the same question as I did to start that off. This is a technique called a rapport cycle, if you care. They're very simple, but can be very complex at times. In that entry level question, or that start off question, was something like, when have you done something that you just got carried away with and couldn't stop? Now, once again, they kind of answer, maybe not, maybe so much, but they should be more engaged. And here's the thing is, once they're engaged, once they've shown their real self, I can start inching down this wheel of intent. Now, the reason why it's called a rapport cycle is because they constantly cycle through a conversation, and it's just a good learning tool and so on. Something that I teach heavily here, and there's tons of free resources on it. You should definitely check it out if you want to get into conversations that move to high level, connect very fast, and work kind of all the time. But let's say in that they're like, man, I don't know, I get carried away with things kind of a lot, but you're asking crazy questions. At this point, because they showed their real self, because they thought about it, because they're investing who they are and not their presentation of the barista or waitress in front of me, I can start inching that intent towards them. So I need, in order to start this exchange of intent, even to attempt to go there, I need a part of their real expression. So I got that, and you'll get it very easily from a rapport cycle. So basically, the thing with this is that I will say, like, you know what? You don't have to answer the question. I can already tell I like you. You're a good person, but I don't make friends with just anybody. So hopefully you feel that back, or hopefully you feel that back, and we can continue the conversation another time when I don't ask such crazy questions. That then starts to put a definition on the relationship. That then starts to move us into, from just being social to now being better friends or acquaintances, or really connecting or expecting that the next time we talk. And of course, intent will build up upon itself and can move like wildfire. I can't talk. Like wildfire when we're moving into seduction. And we have so many videos on that. You should look up 6 points of escalation and so on. It'll kind of merge directly with rapport cycling. And if you need help with this, I would really advise you join Men's Development Excellence. It'll tell you how to do this, and you'll be with a community of guys that are doing this, among many other cool things with their lives. And it's good stuff. In any case, guys, we will talk to you guys soon, and hopefully that was helpful.